meta AD
Oh no,
carries.
it's Zeravir!
But instead, trading a few picks to go alongside this, Lulu. Things like Velios definitely there, but Juggermore being considered right now by LDLC.
We saw it earlier in the day.
Instead,
earlier in the day, but
perhaps more likely.
Either way, you were seeing hovers of scaling options which can either match parity with the Zeri or just have a different play pattern from Naika. Hovering over the Katarina. Now that's something we normally see in the NLC. To shout out Troublelink, who of course that's their main champion, but not to be seen here today. Ica doing all the classic hovers, and now it is just front to back. LDLC playing for the late game, playing methodically, and having Ragnar on the likes of this Ornn very much helps them towards that.
Yeah, and of course, this is a team that sometimes does like to play a little bit slower in the early game, but the moment you make a single mistake, LDLC punish like very few other teams at ERLs, and frankly, slightly above, can do. And they've now got the tools to make that exactly happen. You get to 3 items on Sivir, a lot of work, but Viking will lock in that Trundle. Completely agree. Steal away those resists from the Ornn, and those fights get a lot easier.
And now what I would say is I think that you want to maybe ban away Silas. Silas stealing a Trundle ult is really, really bad. And of course, having the Renata ult there is too. And I know that Ica hasn't played any of it in summer so far. I just think on the draft, I just think that would be too problematic to deal with. On the other side, LDLC, I want them to ban away Chase's Fiora. I think that Chase's Fiora would be a very good play pattern for LDLC to not actually get their 5v5 and still be pulled across the map. Chasey is a Korean Challengers player, came into the NLC for summer, and is a heck of a duelist player. He's just a very good individual laner. And having something like an Ornn, which can get countered, is a little bit problematic. Of course, on the other side, LDLC, they love the Ornn.
Yes, they do.
I'm trying to remember who said, someone, I think it was one of their players was talking to Don Jake, and they were saying that Ornn was the most powerful champion in League of Legends. And let's see if that will be enough to carry them to a win in this round.
Obviously, it's something that Ragnar is certainly no stranger to, whereas the other side, getting rid of the Kennen, getting rid of the Sejuani, two big side lane team fighting options, which Chasey certainly knows his way around. On the other side, it's the two big scaling AD carry champions from the mid lane, AD threats. There we go, they're not quite carries in the same sense, but the Bel'Veth, which Yike popped off on the other day alongside the Viego.
It's a big pick for him.
Indeed it is. And now we have to see what X of them want to lock in. Still need a mid laner, still need a top laner. Gwen certainly works into the Ornn, and Chasey will lock it in.
And now this also gives you a chance to counterpick mid lane. And Ica and Tempt are both so good mid laners within the ERL scene. I'm not going to go here and go, one of these mid laners is better than the other, because I look at both of these mid laners and they're just so good. And as a mid laner myself, I can't help but get excited about these ones. You're looking for priority at this point. If you lock in the Azir, it's a bit of priority. It's a lot of long range. Sivir and Azir is the descendant duo between the two of them, the Shreem and Legacy. And they're such long range, such high damage late game. What that does mean is sometimes you might need a bit of a baton pass to head in towards that late game. It's going to be the Kha'Zix going into that Trundle matchup. You're not going to be able to auto attack that Kha'Zix very much when they start hitting 6. And of course, it is a Yike classic as well. Played it so much back in spring. Played it a couple of times in summer too. This will be their 4th game, and they're bringing it out on this second game of the Amazon EU Master Stage.
Kasing throws out his customary Zillion Hopper, won't lock it in. Instead, it will be Tempt's Ahri. Once upon a time, Tempt was in fact an Ahri main. He certainly knows his way around the champion.
Oh, great player as champion.
Absolutely. But now they have to see whether they can survive the likes of Yikes, Kha'Zix. I'm so excited to see this because in my mind, Yike is arguably the best jungler in the whole of ERLs. Right up there in that contention.
Yeah, when you talk to coaches about what players they're looking at and whether that's your LEC or ERL coaches, they all look and go, there's a guy called Yike who's really, really good. And given the way that he not only has individual impact, but also contributes to his team in the way of tracking the enemy jungler and using these good matchups, he is so valuable to have on your team. And one of the reasons why LDLC is so dominant within the LFL and is looking to be dominant on the grand European stage. Looking towards this draft though, LDLC, full team fight, bit of agency from Yike in the early game. On the other side, you are really looking at individual big performances from particularly that Gwen and the Zeri to make sure that X7 can start swinging with the punches and not just give over to this 5v5 advantage that the draft has from LDLC.
Well, the first game we were casting was that NLC versus LFL rivalry. It's time for round 2. It's the next set of combatants on the ticket. These are two heavyweights, make no mistake, and Reminder again, LDLC are the heirs apparent to the LFL. They are the back-to-back champions in the region. They were felled only by Karmine Core in the finals. Hell, they were practically on an undefeated run in spring at EU Masters. Need I remind you, people were seriously wondering whether that team would just win it all without dropping a single game.
Yeah, and I was such a big fan of that spring run, and you know, you look at a team when you're looking into another ERL and you go, huh, that team's really good. But getting it in your own tournament and the big stage and seeing it start to thrive, it's really exciting to watch. I was a huge fan of the way that LDLC played in spring, particularly around Yike, Iker, and DOS being so interconnected, backing each other up and making sure that the early part of the game was so dominant for them. It was hard not to like that team just from a raw analytical level. But X7 coming into this tournament, they would love to turn that narrative around and put themselves onto and into the conversation, especially since the last time they met, they did get 3-0'd by the French first seed.
They did, absolutely. And, you know, and LDLC here are no strangers to, shall we call it, disappointment at EU Masters. They won it back in 2020, but 2018, 2019, either didn't qualify or fell out in groups. 2021, they didn't even make the tournament. And of course, that was when Iker returned, having been with the organization for so damn long, left to go to America.
See what happens here, because Yike has actually started out on Wolves. And the reason as much as Yike has started on Wolves, hasn't got level 2 yet, might just be able to get level 2 and to ping over to that. It's really interesting to see whether he'd actually go for a contest there, because of course, Khalid's so good at dueling very early on, but you know what, Khalid's even better at that. So, Viking actually playing very Fnatic-esque. We're seeing this a lot from them, abusing an earlier matchup with something like that Trundle, running into the enemy jungle. And what I love from Tempt, if we could actually quickly go over to the jungle entrance around Raptors, Tempt has managed to put down a ward on that side of the map. Perfect, so if Yike crosses the river and goes onto the other side, X7 have full information. Although LDLC have been so good at tracking enemy junglers, it's actually X7 which have the advantage on that now.
Good handshake from Kasing as well. The Ultra Laser goes wide, but DOS ignited, has to flash away. There's a flash from Attila. They get first blood in the 2v2. This was a lane that could not 2v2 for their lives when they're back in the Spanish league. But here they find first blood against LDLC. He's busy talking narratives. Already X7 make 2 amazing plays.
It's Attila Zeri, baby. He's a guy that is so famous for this pick. And on his 15th pick of the champion, in summer, he comes away with an important first bloods. Yike held back. 2v2 going well for X7 in this matchup between this return to this spring rivalry, this spring heavyweight matchup. X7 strike first.
They absolutely do. And a bit of a stat for those people at home who maybe haven't followed the NLC as closely. You have to understand that X7's lanes used to just crush everybody. In playoffs, every lane was up at least 15 hits in every average, on average in every lane. And you're right, they are just tracking the jungle. That's Viking's job. Make sure Yike on this Kha'Zix can't get that much done.
Yeah, and, you know, they track the jungler. 2v2 is help pushing in. Viking is getting the scuttle on the bot side. And honestly, with Tempt teleporting back into mid, you can expect them to even start contesting topside scuttle if they so wished. You're really looking now for LDLC to start just trying to predict what's happening around the map and get a hold of the tempo of this game. Viking will be spotted on this ward. X-Kick and DOS going to get forced away from the tower. Are they going to be able to escape? They are, but they're losing a wave nonetheless.
Viking just gets the pillar onto X-Kick, who's still got the flash, has yet to pop, gets slowed down by the chop. They can't quite get close enough for slows from DOS do their due diligence, and instead X7 will back towards this tower. Attila might take a turret shot here, but he does in fact take that turret shot, so a little bit sad about that, but smite from one of the cannons to make the wave shift a little easier. I'll just back away, job done.
Actually, with all this, you need to know there's a cross map coming. Chasey needs to pop the ghost, he's in danger here.
Does indeed, we'll still have the hallowed miss, yet to use it, get slowed down, so much damage coming through, he's like to fall! Yike flashes in, and we'll get on out, one final turret shot lands! But it's nowhere near enough to get the kill, and Yike finds the kill in the top side.
Doesn't get the memo. When you make a play on one side of the map, particularly when Viking knows that actually, okay, we teleported back into mid lane, LDLC maybe consider that X7 are going towards the top side scuttle. You need to know that you have to be safe on the top side of the map. Maybe Chase is trying to do a bit of an acting performance and sell that top side performance, but Viking shows bot side, you gotta play respectful on that top side, doesn't do so, and that kill goes over to Yike. The Kha'Zix has a kill and is on the board.
Call it out as well. There is actually a really good ward in the river from X7 to try and spot out the pass, but I think Kha'Zix may have just leapt the wall and skipped all the vision. So Chasey thought he was safe.
I'm actually not sure it was down when he was going for that play. That's the thing though, because X7 they've indexed a lot in towards the bot side. Okay, well, again, it's just part of this mind game of trying to track junglers, because both these junglers have been such big names within their regions. Yike, one of the players to watch on the entire European stage, and Viking, someone who came in and, not going to say it was the miracle cure for X7, but the first half of Summer Fog was very poor. They were losing a lot of games and didn't really know what to do. Viking comes in and steadies the ship. Now X7 with Viking on your screen. Take that first dragon. Of course, remember, this is no longer the 6% resist that it was before. It actually goes up to a full 9% resists. Patron are going to be very happy with that one. X7 get their first neutral objective on the board.
Indeed, they do. And of course, you've got to remember, the likes of LDLC did not do a lot of losing in the LFL. They were very nearly undefeated for a while in the league. They did, I believe, drop one game. That was it. One game in the regular season. Very used to being able to run over games. And right now, managing to fire back, but it's X7 who've been perhaps a touch more proactive, shall we say, outside of that top side attack.
So now we see actually something which we know from Attila, which is that you can start winning Zeri lanes. Not very often that happens. Tem's not quite able to steal away those Krogs, but he's just down there, being in the right place. Switched over to the Ignite from the Spellbook, able to fight, and once again, Exakick, this player who has his own reputation. Exakick has been such a popular player to keep your eyes on, and what a player he was back in spring. He's now almost 1,000 gold behind Attila on his opposing number on the other side. X7 not over-forcing on the bot side, but just making sure they're passively gaining something from that side of the map.
2 plates, first blood, and then of course got the Noon Quiver and a Cull in inventory as well. Attila indexing down and getting as much out of this laning phase as possible, and X7 have been down there multiple times, once with just Viking, now again with Tempt following up alongside it to make sure that bot lane gets as much out of it as they can, and has been a regular win condition for the side of X7. We'll see whether LDLC can prevent that from happening. Because you're absolutely right, Exakick and DOS are no slouches. In fact, the whole team has been so flexible with how they can play the game. High resource, low resource, able to be the carry, A to be the weak side. And I think with the Sivir and the Lulu, I think they were hoping perhaps to get a little bit more resource than they have been compared to Ragnar on this all.
Yeah, but even with that said, just want to put in the back of your mind, not as an insurance policy, just because it's known to happen. LDLC are very good at finding one play to break the game, and currently they probably want to start looking for that, right? You're starting to fall behind in some of these key positions, particularly if Zeri starts getting off onto a flying start. That is very dangerous for the side of LDLC, but they're very, the way I would describe it is actually G2-like in some ways, where they find one good play and they flow that into like 3 or 4. And talk to Don Jake about that one. Can they find one around this mid lane? No, just the defensive play right now. Ica just happy to push in and attempt down a little bit of CS. And of course, losing a little bit of priority, but he's used that his own time to get out onto the map. And DOS is not able to claim vision control back, which is one of these things which Tempt has managed to gain with this priority around this mid lane and what he's used it for.
They are just fighting for that control ward. In goes Ike. I don't think he wants that. Handshakes into 3 people. Immediately has to stream a shuffle. Tempt over the wall, though, has got an ignite down. Ike in trouble with the pillar in the way. Tempt hopping forward, has got a bailout on top of his back, but Ike blows both the flash and the ultimate. All of the forward's gone to the other side, gets the knock up. It's on to Viking, but he's still got a subjugate. But he doesn't actually need to get that much down. As over the wall goes Chasey with the skip and the slash. And he starts snipping away at the other side of LDLC. Yike down to about half HP, and X7 don't get any kills. Neither do they lose any, but they are the ones with the health bar and the control of the river still.
And in the year 904, the dwarf for the great control board was one question mark by X7. A lot of control contained and controlled rather over this top side by X7. They've managed to continue that, keep all their pink wards alive, and blow a lot of summoners from the side of LDLC. I wonder, so there's a thing which happens with Azir, where if there's only one soldier down on the ground and you tap E, you will fly towards that. Oops. I wonder if Ica may have just tapped the E, because I can't think of a reason he'd want to go in there. Done it a couple of times on the champion myself, but that was a bit of an awkward moment. LDLC having to commit a fair amount to bail out the ill-timed dash in, but either way, it's not going to lead to any kills thrown over. It is the Herald, though. Very interested in seeing where Viking throws this one down. Might actually be able to use it to break open this bot lane tower, and then as soon as Attila and Kasing start getting out onto the map, wonder what X7 could do with that if that were to happen.
Here's the question. With that Herald there, as you said, I suspect it will go towards that bot lane where those plays have gone down, as you have rightly highlighted, and they still need to keep the pressure going, and the gold is still very, very close. So this game is by no means out of reach of LDLC or anything silly like that. It's just, I feel like the plays have been going X7's way over the last few moments, even if LDLC have been losing the minimum.
Okay, so Attila going to be the beneficiary of this bot lane. How much is that gold lead going to go up to? 1.6.
Quite a lot.
Significant gold income from that one. You expecting them to finish their mythic item on the other side at this point. Yike showed on the bot side of the map, which of course gives top side a bit of room to flex the muscles as X7. And we are now waiting to see what will happen with the second dragon as well. Wave pushed in on that bot side. No outer turret now to start help culling at those minions very early on into the game. The Hextech dragon, its ability haste and attack speed. And remember, each of these individual dragons have to remind yourself nowadays how much value they get. A lot. Now like 7.5% attack speed and ability haste you get from this dragon, and that is not insignificant. Me and Ocean Rift, or someone like Trundle and a Gwen, will use that very, very well, especially if you're someone like Attila who's trying to survive the late game fights. Giving over an Ocean Soul to Azeri with an amount of healing from the Renata and of course the ability to stay alive is very dangerous. LDLC not wanting to give over those objectives, but hopefully they will get to team fight to decide that before that happens.
Will be the plan, and LDLC, as you have stated, are so impossible to count out. They are so good at finding angles back into games from slight deficits. Of course, very good in general. I know one of the statements that came out of some of the LFL analysts in the Middlecon really saying the LDLC are likely the best team in the ERLs, potentially better than a fair number of the LEC teams, which is a big statement. But with how well they played and how dominant the LFL has been, you have to feel like that statement, despite being bold, has some weight to it.
Well, just on a raw, just fundamental level, you can look at the way they play the map, particularly with the way Yike, Ica, and DOS play around each other, and you can very much praise them. Hell, I remember stories of a couple of the minor region teams coming into MSI when it was held in Iceland in 2021, and they were losing against top ERL teams. They taught them how to play the macro of that patch, and they went, so that's how you do it. It seems like LDLC are definitely on that short list. So going back into this game, LDLC, they've kind of lost out in the first couple of clears of those junglers. Felt like X7 kind of pulled a fast one on them and got Viking on to the map. And now it is Attila who has that advantage. They use that Herald down bot side. They've now got them unlocked on the map. Plate's still up for another minute. Not sure they're going to be able to get one themselves, but just being able to contain the LDLC 2v2 is very important for them.
He is. Yike will quickly claim that Stubble Crab before anyone can contest it. And this Kha'Zix's gone forwards the Gordring. He's got the Leandries on the Azir. And I need to know, obviously the Kha'Zix was a big sort of pocket pick of Yike's. How do you think he's supposed to be playing this game? What's his goal within the team fight and just in general in the game? Because I feel like it's not necessarily the easiest or the most common pick we see these days.
Well, you know, Kha'Zix does have, of course, very good neutral objective control. Whenever you have these big champions up, you can threaten to kill them very quickly, very good at stealing. And you do have a fair amount of dueling and mobility. You can do this right. You can be that battle ward in the way that Peanut was when he made his debut all those seasons ago. Gordrinker gives you a little bit extra ability to dive into a team fight, even if that's not your specialty. But look for Yike to just use that individual dueling power, find something around the fringe of fights, and when it really comes to it, dive in and get a little bit more burst added onto the pile.
That's the call of the Forge God, but the W's thrown down already. Gets it anyway, because he doesn't manage to move the W around. Throwing down the needlework, Focus starts to turn around. One final one comes through, but there's a healing pot and enough time for Ragnar to stay away. Ultimate's traded, nothing more thrown.
Riftmaker's built up. You're going to have that healing as soon as you go into those longer fights. Was wondering if that was going to be one of those crazy Ornn one-shots, but even though they do get the brittle procs off, the resistances of the Hallowed Mist means that Chasey has the ability to survive that one out.
I'm just getting a little nervous for Kasing there, because there was a bug hiding in that top lane bush, and I don't mean anything to do with the spaghetti code, I mean, you know, the Kha'Zix. And Kasing has been known occasionally, shall we say, to perhaps walk up to bushes he shouldn't inside lanes.
Well, that actually happened in the finals when he was playing a lot of rather than the Zillion lock. He does a lot of Zillion hovers in Champ Select as a champion, which is always hovered. I remember even back when he was on Super Hot Crew back in 2014 doing that. But he played it in the finals. He did end up walking up in lane looking for some opportunistic vision and got punished for it against Dusty. Not to fall prey to that this time. Game has very much slowed down in the same way that the first game did. But remember, all it took for that other LFL NLC clash was the LFL team finding that opportunistic fight, and then the game was over. LDLC, amongst all of the LFL teams, have been so good at doing just that, finding one opportunistic play, and then snowballing off of that point. So X7, job is not even halfway done for them yet. They have found a good first step in this game. Gold in the right places. You have Attila getting to that point where he gets the 3 items and he starts exploding, folks. Can he impact this fight, though? Harold's been started up, and there are teleports coming in from X7.
And of course, Attila went back to make the most of his cashed-in cull that just went through. Gonna secure that Scuttle Crab. Viking stepping onto the control. We'll get a hold of it. Over what's going to happen with the battle line. Goes a fantastic hostile takeover. Ike has to shuffle away. Chasey in the front line will do what he can, and Ragnar dies as the Herald is taken by Viking Temp, hopping forwards with that Mirage. X-King already has to flash. Ike in trouble already. Doing what he can, has still got that Emperor's Divide. Might push the Gwen towards his teammate. That's about it. On the other side, Attila gets a hold of the Lulu, and X7 just murdered that team fight. 3 for none, plus the Herald. X7 are here to play.
And while we were waiting for the hammerboard blow to fall, I'm sure many of you out there were thinking it was going to be LDLC in that fight. I thought it probably should have been LDLC. You have yourself an Ornn and a Nazir at Herald. It's a dangerous place to play that one-directional team fight. But who is the difference maker? Kasing with this ultimate. Out of vision, goes over the sweeper, and look at this hostile takeover. LDLC, they have a backline that wants to play in this one corridor, but DOS isn't there to put a slow from a Glitter Lance across the team, put a Polymorph down, or a Whimsy onto the right person. X7 find their moment, they split the team, and they divide and conquer LDLC in this fight.
Something about empires and being divided and falling in the LFL team. The number one, that prince of the region, that heir apparent we've been talking about, falling down a little bit in these first few fights, now down nearly 4,000 gold. Third Dragon going the way of X7 alongside a second Herald. Just look at the gold discrepancy in the bot lane, and you begin to just sweat a little bit if you're an LFL fan right now.
And the other thing is, they stole Herald too. Viking got the smite, Tempt picked it up, and now Tempt is in a side lane, and he can move wherever the heck he wants to and puts that down. Even has the empowered recall to get himself into the right lane allocation later on. Now, lots of members of X7 now with gold in pocket. It's not actually led to a lead in either of the solo lanes for X7, but it is Attila on the Zeri. See what he did to DOS in that team fight. Wasn't even needed to kill the carries in that last one, but our great friend Artrom, host of the NLC, will be showing up later into this event to give you all the hope that you would like. Also knows Attila back from the LPL days, back when he was playing in the Portuguese scene, and he has a rule. It's the 26-minute Attila rule. Hits 3 items, and people start exploding. That is getting dangerously close before that timestamp, because you have that nearly 3,000 gold lead. And wherever this area is going to be after that point, you just have to sit, be afraid of your LDLC. Even though Iker is trading on this side lane, X7 are very happy to start opening up the map for themselves, because if they are the ones playing around the open map, they have a lot of mobility. They have the ability to fling themselves over walls with the Gwen, the Ahri, the Zeri, pick off members of LDLC, and they look to position themselves for the 5v5.
Gets hit by the pillar, and teleport comes through from Iker to prevent that bot lane tower going down. Herald gets the charge, but tower stands, and so it will just be a tower for tower trade, all things said and done, despite perhaps the additional summoner usage there from Iker. 3.5-ish minutes just under until what will be a sole fight for X7. Baron's alive in 2, and you have to wonder, are LDLC going to be online in time to fight over that dragon?
In a 5v5, I think there's no fight they can actually end up always losing. Tempt, charming away, gets the root, manages to stop Ragnar from pressing that Call of the Forge God recast. But speaking of that one, if Ragnar is in the right position at a team fight, I don't think there's ever a team fight which LDLC can never win. I think a good enough Call of the Forge God is always a big X factor. So I'm still, again, the job isn't even halfway done for X7 yet. You are on that soul point. You have objectives in hand. You do have items in the right places, but LDLC have so much team fight power in this draft, you cannot write them off. It's they're just waiting for the right angles and the right ultimates hit from the French first seed.
Doing what they can to make sure that this doesn't fall out of their hands. Viking on this bundle, a huge part of that as well. In fact, the whole team been playing pretty well, especially considering we saw some flaws, I think, in X7 in the finals. They had this incredible undefeated run, hadn't lost a series since Viking joined halfway through this incredible lower bracket run, all the way to finals, 2-0 up against Dusty. And you get the dust swept, and you start to see some flaws in the thinking, in the over-aggression, in the mindsets. You just had to wonder what form would they come into
Okay,
the EU
20
Masters.
minutes.
It's pretty high.
You have a Leandres on a Zir. You need to be very careful of this.
Yes.
X7, they have control of the top side of the map. Do they see this coming? Viking is walking up. So as I was saying, I don't think you can stay on this. As soon as that wall goes down, you run it off. This is exactly what we see with these early Baron starts. You just try it. It's not like there are camps up for Yike to be farming, and the wave is already coming into LDLC's side of the map on this top side. So it's a free play from LDLC. They don't lose anything for it, but the payoff would have been excellent were it to have worked out.
It's good timing as well, because it wasn't like it was a minute before Dragon or something, so they still have time to reset. They still have time to potentially contest for that Dragon, but it is a minute or so until that Dragon now. LDLC, are they going to try and contest for this? Or just going to give it up?
Well, if you do give that over, do you get a little bit worried about what happens when Azir gets a bit of a poke down onto someone important, and then they just like tap you back with one skill shot and go back to full HP? Because you do have a lot of range, right? And you can use that when the game is slower. And often what that means at that point is that you get that poke advantage, you go into a fight with a HP advantage, makes the game a lot easier for you. Ocean Soul just makes that much more difficult. Also makes it much more difficult when you have these very slippery carries walking around with effectively an extra 300 plus HP if they start escaping with all of their abilities. Someone like this Gwen is actually going for Zhonya's as well, has a stopwatch. You get to heal up while you're in stasis as well. It just adds that extra level of difficulty to finish someone off.
Actual item discrepancy in favor of LDLC right now, because Temp doesn't have it. As Yike has gone forward onto saying Cluster Flash, stopwatches to taste their fear, but I think he's dead regardless. Will bail himself out into the hostile takeover. There he goes, and he's dead. Pick up by Yike on the Kha'Zix, and that is a huge win for them. Stopwatch and ultimate and flash blown by the Renata in trade for Yike.
Now, there are some HP bars which are a little less good for wear on the side of LDLC. Chasey sat on vision, but it's a pick for LDLC. Numbers advantage coming up to this Dragon. Seriously helps, but you still got to deal with Attila.
A little afraid is stepping up towards this Ornn. He's down towards half HP. Here comes the call of the Forge Guard. Will go over the wall and throw down an ult shot laser that takes Ica straight out of it. Now the turnaround can start coming through with the needlework. Onto X-King, takes him down to about 20% HP. Ragnar, can he snip down to size? But it's looking more like the Darius from last game. A guillotine, a death sentence. Ragnar in the pit. Has been wild growth, but the growth is cut short. Knock up though! Into the stopwatch. Will make sure that Chasey still survives. Gets away from Boomerang Blade, and they'll get the Kha'Zix to boot as well. Even in the 4v5, X7 still win.
And X7 are just out fighting at this point. LDLC, they had a numbers advantage, but they couldn't close down Attila. Attila looks that ram right in the eye and dodges, sidesteps away from the call of the Forge Guard. Throughout this team fight, there were a number of very key outplays that X7 had. Part of it was separating out, making sure that they didn't get clumped up for that call of the Forge God. Some even plays towards the end of it, made sure that they didn't lose someone on the back end too. Attila starts this fight at half HP. You can understand the opportunism of this, but just use that E over the wall. Gets a huge ultrasonic laser to separate out the carries, which means that that numbers advantage is actually not apparent. You don't even have the Azir hitting through this. Next thing I want you to keep your eyes on as well is how important this charm is to save Chasey at the back end of it. No CC to get another Q onto that Gwen. They walk away without losing anyone after this fight. And X7 bluntly just outplay.
Yes, they do, and then they get the soul. They should probably have a look at maybe contesting for Baron afterwards, but they are well and truly in command. Baron still stays alive. It's just a touch too risky, but now the Infinity Edge is in. 3 minutes
Check your
ahead
watches.
of schedule. This train ride is looking pretty unstoppable right now. Even though, as we said, ahead of schedule. Baron started, but LDLC will not want to give this one up for free. Overcomes
Ragnar
Yike.
has TP. Let's see which angle he chooses. Got a couple to go towards, but they need that on ult. X7, they have that Ocean Soul starting to attack up, but they're still losing a lot of HP to the Baron. They need to start trying to land some of these skill shots. Regen back up. I don't think they want a straight fight right now.
There's the teleport, the health bar pretty low. Chasey throws down the Hallow Mist Charm immediately onto the Ornn, who's subjugated and brought to his knees. Exit kick, trying to turn this one around. The Ricochet's doing a lot of work. Still not quite enough. Viking stays alive. Tempt. The ultimate ultra laser comes out. X-Kick. Tempt will not land the charm, has to back away. So low, no teleport quite yet. Attila throws down the lightning crash, and he becomes a god of thunder. Finds a rampage and a dead AD carry tossed over the wall. But Viking is at a chomp on down. Tempt gets Ica. Yike is going to add an S to the end of his name because LDLC just got clean swept by X7.
Here is the death of the LFL, not with a bang, but with thunderous applause, thunderous gunshots from Attila. taking down the backline of LDLC, and they are now right onto the ropes. Soul to X7, Baron to X7, and the second seed from the NLC is really landing haymaker after haymaker against the LFL first.
That charm was spot on from Temp. Immediately Bjorn dies, and then this fight, it's all X7s.
And I love how Temp plays this fight, actually. You know, that charm at the start of it, obviously a huge part of it, but then using the HP as a resource, knowing that actually you keep taking damage, you still got that Ocean Soul taking up 2. Zones out Yike, zones out Ike. Natilla doesn't even need to be there in the thick of the fight. Once again, walks up, flashes over the wall, finds their quarry.
1v2 takes out the whole bot lane there, and he's now over 4,000 gold ahead individually. This Zeri is at 4 items before you can even see a third in for X-Kick. And Alex, Tempt has done you a solid. He's bought a 10-stack necklace.
Now, I've had my conversations with Temp before about his item builds as Attila. He's got a load of items too, but Temp picks up the Hallowed Book. And there you go. He's got himself Magi's 10 stacks up, meaning that you have even more move speed, right? Once you craft those 10 stacks, you get yourself the extra move speed on top of things, and just as the extra threat which this Ahri can bring to the fight, threatening the backline should he start moving forwards, looking for those charms, looking for those extra amounts of damage onto their team. And X7, they start cracking through the base, not opening up the inhibitor turrets just yet, but they're starting to commit to the map and getting themselves a lot of gold to bear.
Yes, they do, and you can see gold leads now across the board in some very scary places, and this Gwen becoming unanswerable on the side lane, this Zeri at 4 items, as we said, so difficult to deal with when your Sivir is not even at Infinity Edge yet, and with the Baron in hand, you have to feel like unless LDLC can stall for maybe 5-10 more minutes, at least they're going to struggle to find anything resembling a fight that they can win.
And just a reminder, last time these two teams faced each other, quarterfinals of Spring Amazon EU Masters. It was, I'm not going to say unceremonious, because it was hard fought from X7, but it was a 3-0. It was they were just kicked out of the competition by one of those tournament favorites. This has got to be so satisfying. I know it's satisfying sat here knowing that the NLC can still compete with the LFL. We were wondering after Spring, honestly, but LDLC, they're now on the ropes, and X7 looking to claim one of those big victories against the French seed.
Starting to put up their flag again. Another challenger for the Amazon European Masters crown. X7 might have been second in the NLC, but they are such a deadly force. We got 3 seeds, and maybe we'll look for a championship to boot, but they've got to get through LDLC first. They've got to get through groups first, but they're going to start off this game, end this game even, with a bang. They get another kill, and they're going to make sure that in the 3v5, they close this one out without an option for LDLC.
Looking to land those Zeri W's. Attila, no ult, no ghost, but doesn't have an Ornn to keep them at bay. Nexus turret's falling. X7 looking for the win.
Yes, they are. We were asking whether the LFL could even be contested in this tournament. It turns out they can. X7 are on the warpath, and the Amazon European Masters just got